Members, we're not done. We still got three other entities that we need a quorum to be able to conduct business, so. Okay, next up is Correction Services. Zion?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. The next department that we will cover is the Department of Corrections. This is a list of slides that we will cover today, along with the corresponding slide numbers. The Department of Corrections is recommended to have $902.3 million in the FY27 budget. Taking a look at the left portion of the slide, you can see majority of funding can be found in State General Fund by $798.2 million, or 88.5% of the budget, followed by interagency transfers of $59 million. Since majority of the budget units have similar functions, the right portion divides the budget by the department's administration, prison administration, incarceration, auxiliary accounts, and probation and parole. As shown, majority of funding is designated to the department's incarceration programs by $514.1 million. This slide provides the recommended funding of adult and juvenile correctional costs for FY27, which is $1.34 billion. To stick to the topic of adult correctional costs, you see that the Department of Corrections represents 67.2% of the $1.34 billion, and local housing of state adult offenders represents $206 million, or 15.3%. Collectively, DOC and local housing of state adult offenders are recommended for $1.1 billion, or 82.5% of the total state correctional costs. This slide goes into greater detail of the source of each means of finance. The $59 million in interagency transfers primarily comes from GOSEP to house ICE offenders at Camp J and for disaster reimbursements. The $39.5 million in fees and self-generated revenues are largely from offender work crews, canteen sales, employee meals and housing, and probation and parole supervision fees. The $935,000 in statutory dedications comes from the Adult Probation and Parole Officer Retirement Fund, and this is generated from offenders paying a fee to their first probation or parole meeting. And the $4.6 million in federal funds comes from various grants such as the Transitional Training Grant, Second Chance Act, incentive awards from the Social Security Administration, and other grants. This slide begins a comparative analysis of funding from FY25 through 27 and highlighted the $121.9 million net increase between FY26 and 27. In State General Fund, there's an $81.8 million net increase for various standard statewide adjustments, aligning overtime, operating expenses, and supply needs with a 3-year average of actuals, and also a capacity increase at Louisiana State Penitentiary. And there's also some funding for offender medical supplies. In interagency transfers, there's a $42.4 million net increase, primarily to house ICE offenders at Camp J, and this provides 208 offenders with housing, transportation, and also lunches. There is $704,000 that has a net increase in fees and self-generated revenues, primarily for additional canteen services and various standard statewide adjustments for the auxiliary programs. The $3 million decrease in statutory dedications is largely to remove one-time funding from the Criminal Justice and First Responder Fund for software used to transcribe offender phone calls. This slide provides a funding comparison of each agency within the Department of Corrections. There are several agencies that have larger budget units than others, and this is due to accommodations for larger capacities, the primary usage of facilities, and normal administrative functions. The column on the right provides the most up-to-date census of the state adult offenders, and as shown, there's a total of 14,945 offenders as of March 4th. This slide divides the $902.3 million in the budget into expenditure categories. You can find majority of funding identified in the goals section for total personnel services, and this makes up $577.3 million, or 64% of the budget. The next two slides will focus on each line item in the total other charges expenditure category of $201.5 million. In this slide, other charges is recommended for $120.4 million, with the majority of funding designated to house ICE offenders at Camp J and also providing delivery of health care services. Interagency transfers within the total other charges category makes up $81.1 million, with the majority of funding designated for payments to the Division of Administration for Risk Management, OTS fees, and finance payments for vehicles and equipment. This slide provides a comparison of expenditures from FY25 through 27, and also highlighting the $121.9 million net increase between FY26 and 27. The next slide will provide justification of these changes, primarily in personnel services and other charges. There's a $51.6 million net increase for items associated with covering the base needed for salaries and related benefits, employee pay increases to classified positions, and also aligning overtime funding with the 3-year average of actuals. There's also $12.4 million included for an additional 150 correctional officers related to the increase at Louisiana State Penitentiary. In operating expenses, there's a $7.7 million net increase, primarily to align operating expenses and supplies with the 3-year average of actuals. The $56.2 million in other charges are largely due to housing ICE offenders at Camp J and additional funding due to increases in medical claims and offender medical supplies. And the $6.5 million net increase in acquisitions and major repairs are primarily for major repairs at facilities, equipment purchases, and plumbing repairs associated with the capacity increase at Louisiana State Penitentiary. The next 4 slides will provide information of agencies that are in the purview of DOC, but can be found in the other requirements department. Local housing of state adult offenders provides various services to state offenders and local facilities, and this includes housing in parishes and local facilities, pre-release opportunities, and transitional services. There's also a portion that realizes the Criminal Justice Reinvestment Initiative, and that will be discussed in the next slide. Between FY26 and 27, there is a $761,000 net increase, primarily to remove the one-time $3 increase to the daily per diem rate. And in FY25, the $17.3 million increase is to make the $29.39 permanent. This slide provides the Criminal Justice Reinvestment Initiative, which is the annual cost savings based on population decrease. Over the years, there are many changes in funding distributions, and this slide provides the latest information based on the FY25 savings. Act 209 of the 2025 regular session reduced the savings returned to State General Fund and allocated 15% of the savings for the Back on Track Youth Pilot Program. Overall, the total net savings of the JRI funding is $41.2 million. This next section will provide funding updates of the current correctional debt service payments. Within this agency, principal and interest payments are provided to the Louisiana Correctional Facilities Corporation Lease Revenue Bonds, which were sold for construction, improvement, and facility purchases. The current payments are for Energy Services Company, OJJ Swanson at Monroe, and LCIW. As it relates to the funding comparison, there was a $138,000 increase from FY26 to 27 to adjust the debt service payments. This next section will cover the prison enterprises, which is within the purview of DOC and can be found in the ancillary department. Prison enterprises provides job opportunities to offenders while producing products and services for sales to state and local government, nonprofit organizations, and political subdivisions. This agency receives no state general fund, and all adjustments can be found in interagency transfers and fees and self-generated revenues, which are recommended for $37 million. There's a $150,000 net decrease, primarily to remove one-time funding for major repairs and equipment purchases. For your review members, there are department metrics and additional budgetary information starting on slide 21. This concludes the presentation for the department. I have Secretary Westcott and Undersecretary Tammy Grant here to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Zion. Secretary Westcott, you're welcome to make any comments,
Yes.
sir.
Good morning, Mr. Vice Chair and members. Again, Gary Westcott, Secretary, Department of Public Safety and Corrections. This is my second year in front of the committee, and this is the first time in 18 years that we don't have Thomas Bickham with us, so our new Undersecretary, who's been on the job 2 months, Tammy Grant, I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, Tammy Grant. Have a procurement background. I was in the procurement position as procurement director at Corrections for a little over 10 years and spent almost 20 years at the Office of State Procurement as assistant director over there. So that's my background. Love corrections, but I know I have a lot of questions I am not going to be answered like Mr. Bickham did. He was definitely a value and asset to the department as well as the state, and I will do my best to try to answer your questions today. If not, I'll get back to you.
Yeah, and I want to thank Zion. That's that's a lot of work he does for this committee. Appreciate you. I do want to make a couple of comments. As you all know, this department has been typically underfunded, mainly because of the unknown cost of medical needs for the offenders and for overtime needs. So for the first time that I ever remember, we've been actually given more money up front to kind of offset that a little bit. So the increase in the budget for us is mainly because of that. They've been funding the medical costs and some of the overtime up front. Overtime mainly due to, the vacancies, just like state police. We have plenty of vacancies. 272 of the 300-something vacancies, 350, I think, are within 3 facilities: Elaine Hunt Correctional, Louisiana State Penitentiary, and Allen Correctional. Those 3, 2 of those, we've done a SER increase of $2 an hour to try to increase the vacancies, and we have. We've got new leadership in those facilities, which has helped with the recruitment, but we still have a 50% turnover rate in the corrections field. It's nationwide. It's not just us. So that's something that we deal with. We have also, FMLA affects us like it does other state agencies, but when somebody misses work for us, we have to have somebody filling that drop. So there has to be somebody overseeing the offenders at the facility. So overtime is needed for FMLA, and then also increased security measures, especially at Elaine Hunt Correctional and Louisiana State Police. We're fighting contraband more than ever. We're arresting visitors. We're arresting employees. We have made a major arrest this morning at Rayburn. It probably hasn't hit the media yet, but we are doing every day fighting contraband and trying to do what's best for compassion and care of our offenders. So I appreciate it. I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Secretary Westcott. I know it's a challenging endeavor that you have to undertake, and having been to Angola several times as a visitor, not as an occupant, but I fully appreciate the challenges the correctional officers are faced with every day and the stresses that are placed upon them with the number of incarcerated individuals and just the whole process. But in regard to increased capacity at the state penitentiary, is the facility currently operating over capacity right now? Because you're asking for the increase, just wondering where we are in terms of capacity, and if so, where are they going if we are over capacity?
Well, the capacity has increased a little bit over the last couple of years, but it's mainly the need of the overcapacity at the local level, and we're trying to fill it. We've have West Main Yard has an area that hasn't been used or occupied because it's been years of abuse, and it's not livable right now for inmates. So we're refurbishing that. They called it an expansion. An expansion makes it sound like we're building something new. We're not building something new. We're fixing up an area that should be able to house about 688, which should help the local level with some of their capacity issues. So.
And y'all are housing ICE detainees, I think, there as well. How long do you think that relationship will continue?
Well, I'm not sure. If you hear of the recent news of the mega warehouses that they're planning on building, I think that ICE is going to move towards moving some of those. There's several facilities in Louisiana that hold ICE detainees. So the future really is unknown. They said we're going to know something within the next 6 months. But the great part about that, and I said in the Senate side, I was very hesitant about opening up Camp J or Camp 57 or Louisiana Lockup, whatever you want to call it, just because it was a major overtaking, and I saw how bad that facility was. And we used it during COVID to put some of the local level people in it, but it's really cannot be used. And when they told us they would give us money up front to fix it, and then the money that's coming in we continue to put back in, and we're doing it in 3 phases basically. So we have it available right now for 208. It's been housing about 190 to 200 consistently. And then we're constantly fixing up the other 2 phases. And the great part about that is whenever this is over, and I don't know when it is, we're going to have a brand new Camp J that could house some DOC prisoners. And again, we won't have to go into capital outlay looking for the money, because we're reinvesting everything we're getting from the feds right now through GOSEP, through our intergovernment agreement. We're putting back into fixing that place up. And we're probably going to, April 1st, we'll have another 104 available to be put in. And then by the end of the year, another 104. But again, I don't know what's going to happen in 6 months.
Well, no, I appreciate
Yeah.
that. That was the point of the question, because ultimately this will transition to something else. And so you're saying that the facilities that are there will be able to be utilized, and how many in terms of capacity would be there, you think?
So right now it's single man cells for the feds. So it's going to 416, but I really think we could double that up and fit close to 800 DOC inmates.
Okay. One other question. There's obviously legislation and reforms concerning DOC custody and different issues, and I'm sure y'all are tracking that. And do you have any input or comments in regard to how those reform measures will impact DOC and its population?
Okay. In regards to what?
Well, there's a lot of different in regard to reform and looking at how we're retaining those incarcerated or releasing them, and just looking if you're tracking that and seeing if that's going to have substantial. You mentioned medical costs. That obviously is one thing, but there's other aspects in terms of how we're looking at. There's a lot of legislation that regarding, correctional institutions, and just wondering if you've been tracking any major ones that you feel will affect your operations.
Yeah, we have some that we brought forward. For instance, we're trying to do like what the teachers did with their critical shortage needs, where we could bring in retired correctional officers, bring them in where they don't have to get half of their pay or suspend their retirement. So we have that, which we could hope, because again, we have 272 vacancies already, and then we're adding 150 TOs to Angola. Somebody asked me, how are we going to fill 150 when we can't fill out what we have now? We're hoping that helps. We are seeking with civil service. We did a pay increase survey. We're probably the lowest paid in the southern region for sure. We're at $17.50 an hour. The next closest to us, I think, is $20 an hour in Mississippi. Alabama was lower, but they've raised since then. So we're hoping to get that done.
But to that point, sorry to interrupt you, but you're looking at salaries and related benefits increase. So is that going to provide an increase in the per hour fee that you're providing?
We did a survey at if we could increase $2.50 an hour and get us to 20, comparable to everybody else, with the benefits, and then a 5% compression, or what's the term?
Corresponding adjustment.
Corresponding adjustment. If we could do that, it's somewhere got a price tag around $15 million that we're looking at. So we haven't brought that up yet.
I think it is, right now it is at Civil Service, and we're waiting and having preliminary discussions with them to add it to the agenda. It has not been added to my knowledge. As of yesterday I checked, I don't believe it's on a meeting and schedule yet, but we're hoping to have it this year.
Okay, because obviously turnover for correctional officers is pretty substantial.
And every day, we're working on enhancing our education, our vocational training, our skills, our work releases. We're working on that every day to get better. One of the things that Assistant Secretary Deloche, who's here, is working on is we have for welding program, for instance, we have it spread out through all the facilities throughout the state. We're looking at bringing it into maybe two spots where we could really enhance it and produce a better welder for when they are released, they're able to work. So that's some of the small things we're doing. We're working with another company, Louisiana Workforce, I think, not Louisiana what's the name? Yeah, Louisiana Workforce, and they're working on where they could get some skills, where it's like construction, HVAC, and for the inmates that are still have some time left, and we could use them throughout the local facilities for their needs. If they need a welder, if they need an auto mechanic, and then when they get out, they'll have the skills to be able to find a job easier. We're working with Geographic Solutions to try to help with getting employees ready, job ready. It's they basically within the facility. It's like almost like an Indeed for inmates. They start filling out the appropriate paperwork, and we find a job that they're suitable for. Find out what credentials they need, what training they need, and we try to get that within the inside before they get out. So we're doing all we can to help them prepare for the outside to reduce recidivism rates, because we all have seen that recidivism rates have not really changed in the past 15 years in Louisiana. It's fluctuated 1 or 2%, but so we're hoping that helps.
And that's important. It's not just about incarceration. It's also about hopefully becoming productive, contributing members of society once they're done and serve their time.
That is the goal, yes, sir.
Okay, appreciate that, and good luck. Okay, Representative Carrier for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Mr. Secretary, how you doing?
I'm doing good, sir.
Well, you know I have the best prison in Louisiana, in Allen Parish.
You do.
And they do a good job. But what about, are y'all having trouble with drones like they do at the Federal Detention Center?
I'll tell you, I spoke to my chief of prison operations who oversees the 8 prisons, and I asked him that question when it came about. And he said, really, we don't see a big drone problem in our area. We see it in some of the locals. I actually saw it when I was a warden in Iberia Parish. And he doesn't think we have a problem. But then when you speak to some of the experts in the field, they said, well, you probably have a problem and you don't know it. But I will tell you, and the bad thing is, and again, I guess I should say this, but we really don't have a drone problem because they're getting the contraband in other ways. If we were stopping the contraband, which we are now, I foresee us having a drone problem in the future. Because when we are checking our employees, we're checking our visitors. Again, it is very hard to find a piece of paper, that fits on the size of your fingertip that could, intoxicate somebody and possibly kill them. But that's what we're dealing with. But I have a feeling that the drones are coming.
Well, what about the staff? We've taken a lot of prisoners in the last 2 years. And are they staffed? Are we staffed pretty good in Allen Correctional?
So you have probably close to 80 vacancies over there right now. We are starting to see problems in that area, especially with the plants and the refineries. But that right now, Allen is our third biggest issue right now with retention and recruiting. So we're struggling right now. But I think the chapel that we're working on getting over there is going to help. I appreciate your help with that.
Yes, sir.
And Senator Cloud, thank you.
And talking about ICE, if you go to the Federal Detention Center in Oakdale, they bought 600 and something SUVs. I mean, all black, loaded up. I don't know what they're going to do with all that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'd like to have one, to tell you the truth. But anyway, it's a sight to see.
Yeah, well, we're not doing that, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Representative Carrier. Next up, Representative Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Chair. Good morning.
Good morning, Rep. Carpenter.
Secretary. How are you?
I'm doing fine, ma'am.
Let me talk a bit. I need some information on what are you guys doing with the Second Chance Act? I think it was mentioned on slide 3, 2 or 3. What are you doing with that money?
Renee, you want to go?
Renee this year.
I'm going to bring up Assistant Secretary Deloche, who's over our reentry and education and chaplaincy services.
Yes.
She could.
Good morning.
Hi. Good morning. How are you?
I'm well, ma'am. Thank you. Renee DeLuce, Assistant Secretary for the department. So the Second Chance Act, the funding that we're getting, we're pouring into programs and education and also helping people transition from incarceration to the public. So we're doing reentry programming. We're doing 100 hours of pre-release. We're making sure that if they want to trade, if they want education, it's afforded to them. Also depending on their behavior. So if they're not behaving correctly, of course, we're not going to put them in an environment where it's a pro-social environment and everyone's really trying to do the right thing. So until their behavior changes, they're not going to have access to that. But for the majority, everyone has access to those programs and the education, and they're trying just to produce a better citizen.
Okay. So you've got some proven success with it
When you say proven success, we have
in terms of data.
Yes, ma'am. So we have graduates from the program, and we're working towards actually working with, out of Lafayette, the Blanco Center, and also with Mississippi State to sit there and look at our data and analyze it. Because what we've never done, We've never had proof of if somebody took this program.
Vanessa's moving her head.
Vanessa's moving. Sorry about that.
LaFleur is back and forth, and I'm
Right.
short.
So with the NAICS codes, we keep moving back and forth. Like, hello. So with the NAICS codes, we've never really gotten all the NAICS codes to be able to say that when somebody is released from incarceration and they went through the welding program, or they went through the carpentry program, or they went through any of our programs, that they actually got employed in those fields.
Okay.
So we're working with Louisiana Works. We have great synergy with other state departments. I think
That's what I was
finally.
going to ask
Yes,
you if
ma'am.
you were connecting with them.
Yes, so through the Louisiana Workforce Investment Council, we are really working towards getting that data, find out what the industry needs are in Louisiana, and then making sure that we're producing people for those needs. So instead of having, like Secretary Westcott was talking about, having a saturation of programs, we're going to be more intentional with the programs that we're doing and making sure that people are going into those programs, have a job when they get released. Because we won't want to build them up and give them that hope and then get released and there's no jobs in whatever they just got. So yes, we are being more
You
intentional
want to
with that.
meet the market.
Yes, ma'am. And so we're looking at market projections with Louisiana Louisiana Investment Council, and we're pivoting and we're doing different things and being more intentional with the programs that we're doing. We are looking at developing new programs and canceling other programs. We're going to enhance what's working and eliminate what's not. And just being more, like I said, fiscally responsible and intentional with the program to make sure that people have the best step forward when they get released. The data
and
hasn't
this
been
would
there.
certainly help the recidivation.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Education, the education recidivism rates, I think, are at 24%. So it's proven that if you get an education, obviously, that it will reduce your chances at recidivism. And then also, if you're employed, that reduces your chances at recidivism. So if we can
Absolutely.
get more workforce, work release facilities open and give people an opportunity to start working in facilities or working in a job prior to release, and then that way when they're released, they can continue with that job, hopefully continue with that job, and get them in the areas where they're going to be releasing too, because Louisiana would like to be by our families. So if I'm up in Caddo Parish and I'm up there in a work release and I live down in Thibodaux, I'm not staying in Caddo. I'm going to release and I'm going to go back to Thibodaux. And so let's get them back to the areas where they're going to be releasing and hopefully be able to maintain their employment upon release.
So how many people are currently in that program, Second Chance? About?
That's hard to quantify.
It's statewide?
Yes, ma'am. So it's all of our programs, we have braided funding. And so the Second Chance Act isn't necessarily a specific group. It's braided funding from different funding sources. And so I would say the majority of our programs are funded with some of that money.
Gotcha.
And so it's all of the people that are enrolled in education, all the people that are enrolled in NCCR programs, IBC programs,
Okay.
college. And then that's not even the programmatic. So then you have your cognitive behavior, you have your mental health, you have your addiction programs. So it's just a plethora of
And
programs.
so they're evaluated continuously?
Yes.
Right. We have about 1,500 in our transitional work programs, which are run by the sheriffs, and we're looking to increase that number. We all know there's the increased number of DOC inmates. So now there was transitional work programs closing years ago because we didn't have the DOC inmates to fill them. So now we do. They're opening back up. We're in discussion with a couple more sheriffs, and if we could open up more, that'll allow more inmates to get into that population. So that's definitely
impressive.
our goal.
So I appreciate that. So the next question then, the work release, the individuals on the work release program, they're paid, right?
Yes, ma'am.
What is the pay now?
Well, it depends what job they're in. I mean, if they're in a good welding job or an offshore job, they're paid much more than if they're working at a convenience store, which some of the transitional work programs, that's what they're doing. They're working in local convenience
So it
stores.
ranges from what to
And then it
what?
depends on the sheriff, how much they keep of the, I mean, I think there's a law that they're not allowed to keep I think they're allowed to keep up to a certain percent of it. So again, some are
Correct.
making a lot more money than others, depending on the area.
As an example, here
Mm-hmm.
at the Capitol, are they on work release?
That's,
or
I
not?
think that's not
No.
work release. That's trustees from the Louisiana State Police
Trustee,
Barracks.
Are they paid?
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
they're paid.
What does that pay?
That ranges anywhere from 10 cents to $1
Good. Yeah,
an hour.
An hour?
you know.
How does the range come? What makes the difference in the range?
We have our director of prison enterprises here that handles
Get
that.
up here.
And he's brand
Take chairs.
new too, so we'll break him in.
And new too.
Yeah.
And here I come hitting them with these questions.
Yes.
huh?
So,
Appreciate it.
yeah, we'll have Joe introduce
Good morning,
himself.
Mr. Vice Chair, members. Joe Buttress, Director of Prison Enterprises.
I didn't get the last name.
Buttress.
Buttress.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
So we employ inmates that are in DOC custody, such as the State Police Barracks.
Right.
Which the majority of their workforce is here at the Capitol. If we're speaking specifically to those guys, they can make up to, it depends on their years of incarceration.
Okay.
So you start out where you have to serve 3 years in DOC custody before you're eligible for incentive wages. And then you start at a base rate, and depends on the job. But, and then you gradually work up and you get raises each year. And it's, we're trying to model a private type of environment where you work hard, you do a good job, you get raises each year, and then you reach, a certain max that's, allowed by law. We can only pay them so much. That's allowed by law, so.
Okay. So, okay, thank you for that. My next question, I just got a whole bunch of them, not a whole bunch, but what can you tell me about the sudden increase in deaths of inmates at Elaine Hunt?
So
That's
yeah,
concerning.
it is very concerning. Yes, ma'am. So we met with the Black Caucus last week. Several members are here, and we discussed kind of what we have going on. And I would tell you, 87% of our population has a substance abuse addiction or a substance abuse related charge.
Right.
They're addicts when they come in. They don't immediately not come addicts when they get as soon as they get in there. We have a screening process where we really try to identify them. We had one that died. He was there a day. I mean, so he died from detox. It's like a lack of drugs. One thing we do, and now that the border's being tightened up, we're, shooting down boats from overseas. Some of the drugs are not getting in that are typically get in. We've actually had an inmate that's been at Lane Hunt that's been there for a very long time. And he told the new warden, he said, this is the least amount of drugs we ever had, but it's the most amount of deaths. And it's because they're smoking whatever they can get their hands on. Roach spray, floor stripper, bleach. So when we run the toxicology test, it tests for over 400 substances. It's coming back negative because they're not dying from fentanyl or meth or mojo. They're dying from chemicals that they're ingesting. And I'll tell you, I've seen some things, and you guys can only imagine, but I saw a guy fall on the ground when I was the warden in Iberia Parish Jail, and I had 3 deputies and a Acadian ambulance working on him to save his life. For over an hour, we worked on that guy. We wound up saving his life. Immediately when we walked out of there, 2 guys ran to that same spot, and they looking to find what he smoked so they could smoke it. I can't explain. I'm not an addict, but I will tell you, it's scary and how desperate some of these people are, and we fight every day. I will tell you one thing that will help is to have more officers on the tier, because typically if you got one officer on that tier, he walks the walk. It'll take him 20 to 30 minutes to get back to that spot. And I think I told the committee a couple days ago that we had a guy that was laying in his cell for about 15 minutes before we were able to get to him, and his cellmate is laying in the bed watching him. And when they asked the cellmate, why didn't you call for help or man down? He basically said, I don't give a F about him. And that's what we're dealing with in the facilities. So we sitting there fighting it. And when we talk to the inmates, because we have inmate councils, we have an amazing one at Angola, and I'm trying to get that at the Minute Round Table that several of you have been on. I'm trying to get that started at Elaine Hunt. But when you talk to some of the dorm reps, they said the reason why they don't is because they would get in trouble in the past. Now, if you all know, I've probably had 4 wardens over there since I've been in 2 years. I've had 4 wardens. This warden that we have here, I have a feeling he's going to be here to stay. He's doing an amazing job. He's an RN and has a medical background by nature. So it's things are getting better. But we had a death 2 days ago. Again, it's hard to explain, but we are doing the best we can to stop it. But again, I can't God gave us free will, and people are still making bad choices.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's something that has to be addressed.
I agree.
And we have to find a way and the money, I guess, to see if we can eliminate. You're never going to eliminate it, but at least slow it down
Yes, ma'am.
in some way. So I thank you for what you do. The contraband situation is something that's unimaginable, and I'm not sure if it's that security is an issue, or is it that you don't have enough people available to catch it, or what? But it's coming in.
Yes,
in
ma'am.
the prisons,
Yeah.
one way or the other.
Yeah, and the main thing that's
So-
coming in from the officers, again, is the paper. I mean, they're bringing in paper. I mean, a sheet of paper like this will sell for $500 because all you need is that little tip, that little corner right there to get high. And so it is hard, but they pass just like a TSA. Just like when you go through the airport, they're taking their shoes off, they're taking their belts off, they're going through, they're being scanned. And they're still able to bring it in. We're also having it dropped off in the fields or in the ditches where the inmates are working. In Rayburn, we just made a big bust this morning. It was a former inmate from East Baton Rouge, never served time in Rayburn, but he got connected with somebody in there, ran and tried to drop it off, and we were able to catch him. And when I tell you, it could fill up this whole table, what we pulled out of that bag. It is scary how much drugs and phones and everything else they had in contraband. So, and that's, my guys are fighting that every single day. And I'll tell you that a death affects our officers much more than you guys would probably believe. It is,
I would imagine so.
It's just, it's hard. So we're doing our best. Again, do we have some bad apples? Absolutely.
Yes.
And we're doing our best. Our department has arrested probably 4 or 5 officers in the last month.
What are you doing with the recruitment to get officers?
Well, we're doing just like everybody else. We have an recruitment team. We go out to job fairs. We do career. We post online. I mean, we're trying to get, like I said before, increases in our pay. I'll tell you, corrections officers, it's a field that not many people want to get into. It's a dangerous field. It takes a very special individual to work in that area, especially when you can make much more money in the private sector. But we are doing our best. But again, we've been having a 50% turnovers, and I've been in this business for 35 years, and I don't think the turnover rates ever changed in 35 years. It's gotten worse. So.
Well, I appreciate your candor. And one other thing, I'm going to just put it out there on the table. When you hear in the news of an officer having twins with an inmate.
Yeah,
So-
unfortunately, those things happen. It's under investigation
Yeah.
right now by Iberville. Again, so I don't have much information on the Iberville Parish Sheriff's
that
Office
you
handling,
would.
but
Yeah.
I will tell you that happens when we have, and no disrespect, but when we have 70% of our staff are female.
Yeah.
And they work in an all-male facility.
Yeah.
They are, and we've had one that was there 19 years. And I guarantee you, this woman wasn't doing this for 19 years. It took her 19 years to get manipulated and come up with whatever reason or found the right one and fell in love with. I have no idea. I can't explain that one either. But it does happen. Some of these inmates are very manipulative, and they
It's
flatter them
just-
and they do what they can. I don't know.
Yeah, it's
But,
all in the
yeah,
person.
it's an issue. I agree.
Well, I thank you.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you for responding whenever I need.
I appreciate your support
Questions,
too. Thank you.
yes.
Been great to work with.
Thank you.
Thank you,
sir.
Representative
Appreciate
Kaufman.
it.
Yes. Representative Knox for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Secretary, for being here. Want to kind of pick up on some things that Representative Carpenter referenced. And I too want to thank you and your staff for your candor and openness and transparency, and for accommodating me on the visits that I've made to Angola. It was very enlightening to me, and it cleared up some old perceptions that I had relative to the reputation of Angola and some other issues that pertain to how you guys operate. You had mentioned about correctional officers and the vacancy, and I think it's fair to say at least most of those individuals like myself who visited Angola witnessed the level of stress and pressure that these correctional officers are under day in and day out. And we're not talking about Boy Scouts or anyone like that of a population that these officers are dealing with. $17 an hour to put up with that, I probably would leave too, to be quite frank about it. And so I don't know where you are in terms of getting the increase. Can you speak to that? You mentioned something, you did a survey and that is pending.
Right, yeah. So again, we did get a special entrance rate. Again, under Secretary LeBlanc, he got a dollar extra a couple of years ago. And then when Governor Landry and I came in, we got another dollar extra for Hunt and Angola. So they are up to $19.50 over there. And then again, we reached out to civil service. We did the survey. Tammy would probably be a better answer here, but we are in the process of hopefully requesting that.
We have already submitted the request to Civil Service to be added to the agenda for an upcoming meeting so it can be heard. Hopefully, we're going to have that on the agenda for either May or June, I think is the earliest that potentially it can hit that meeting agenda, and they'll vote at that time to see whether it's approved or not.
So is the money or budget already funded, or is it a request for it to be funded?
It is neither at this point. It is not in our budget request, and it is not funded at this point.
So can you help me understand what is the plan to put it in the request?
Yeah, we were going to get with Commissioner Barrod and discuss that with them, and yeah, we would love to get it into our budget. Again, I know we've already had an increase in our budget. I mean, you see everybody with these Doge efforts, but you know, we've did make some cuts, but basically the money that we got, we offset and put it into something else. So we would love to get it in there. If not, I mean, we were hoping to get it maybe in a supplemental, because we're going to have a reduced supplemental. Again, we're both new to this, so we were going to rely a lot on the commissioner for some help, and I was going to get with Representative McFarland and discuss that, but it's definitely a need. I would love to say if when they get them in there that the overtime would go down, so you should have some kind of off balance. So we're hoping that to work out again, but we haven't seen that so far. It's just because we just can't get to that number yet to offset it.
Understood. Relative to something that the vice chair mentioned as it relates to capacity and the laws that we've implemented over the past year or two, the amount that you all budget as an agency, have you all started looking at the true real cost of what it costs the state to incarcerate someone from the moment of arrest to going before the judge, to then being sentenced and then housed and then medical treatment? And are you doing that in a projection over years so that we as a body can track what the real cost that we're paying on our justice system?
Right.
Because what you present as a budget is, I think you would agree, is not the actual real cost, because we're not projecting out like a business. I think it was said previously from the individual at the table. If we're doing it like a business, we would be projecting out how much it's costing us as a state to incarcerate someone. Right. Do you all have any sense of that? Or
I think at this time, some of that ability to cost out for a projection of 5 years, the medical costs have consistently gone up year after year, and our medical budget for the last 4 years has been 28.7 that we've been budgeted for each year, and it's been nowhere close to what our actual expenditures have been. So we've been had to get that on the supplemental. So we do know that those costs keep increasing. So we do have some projections of what, based on historical, the last 4 years, how much they've gone up, that we can say how much we anticipate it going up in the future.
Yeah, and I thank you for that answer. I appreciate that. I think my concern is that when you guys come to the table, someone like me don't know that. We're only going off of where we are in this fiscal year, and I would be interested and intrigued to know what it's like 5 years out, so that we as a body can better prepare on how we're going to fund the department, if that makes sense.
There's so many factors too. Again, if they're staying at a facility like Raymond Laborde, it's probably costing us $60-something a day. If they're at Angola, it's closer
That's
to
right.
$120 a day. And again, the medical, we don't have a crystal ball and project that, but I will tell you that I have probably signed more. We used to call it compassionate release. We call it terminally ill releases. I have signed more of those this year than probably any other secretary. Those that are basically incapacitated. Sorry, they're on their deathbed basically, and they were sitting in there, and the state's having to pay this, and they're taking up one of the beds at our hospice unit or our treatment unit. So I've been releasing those, and there's a bill that's coming forward that I think Parole Project is kind of pushing to kind of increase, because right now I have a 60-day window, and I will tell you sometimes I sign that and they die before they even get out of the prison. So we're trying to increase that to 120 days, which will have some savings on the state allowed, and also some compassion. Again, I know some victims might not want to hear this, but I mean, if they are allowed to die in a bed with their family member next to them, it makes a big difference instead of dying in a hospital bed with a shackle next to you. So again, that's one thing that we're definitely for. We're looking at medical parole and medical treatment, furloughs. I don't control that. The parole board does, but I have discussions with them every day and how important it is to try to allow these guys to get out if they're able to. And I know the victim's opinion and the victim's comments have a lot to do with it. We talked about this at the round table, but again, there has to be some sense of common sense when it comes to letting some of these people out there. They're not going to harm anybody. They're not at a point where they're going to cause any more damage. I mean, we've got guys that have been in prison 60-something years. They're in their late 70s or 80s. I mean, what else are we going to do? You know, I mean, they've done everything they possibly can do, and you know, so we're trying to come up with some type of release mechanism for them. The governor has signed several commutation of sentences in his first term, which I don't think has really been done in the last several governors. So we're getting ready to do some more for Easter. He done one for Veterans Day, Christmas. So again, there's hope within the prisons that we're working for change like that. But again, it's really hard to tell how much it starts from start to finish. But I will tell you, it is extremely expensive.
Yeah, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you for elaborating in the way that you did. But I think for me and my colleagues who are sitting here, that information we don't know. And it would be helpful, I think, for everyone who's interested to know that in a policy-making position that we sit in. And as well for you and your team to know what those numbers look like when we have a 70 or 80-year-old person shackled to a deathbed in hospice. How much are we paying for that individual, and how much longer are we going to pay for that? Irrespective of the emotional aspect of it, because we're talking budget and finances. I want to know what those numbers look like, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I'd like to add, too, in one of our Doge efforts, we're working with a company and who's working with LDH, too, to try to basically create, it's almost like a nursing home, a SNF unit, outside the gates where they're not, where they wouldn't be under the state dollar and our department. The Medicaid would take over. It's like just like a regular inmate that goes to a hospital. Once he's there 24 hours, Medicaid takes over. So we're trying to get that, because we have, in some facilities, we have 140 inmates in basically a nursing home type unit. We have a hospice unit at Angola and at Elaine Hunt Correctional. So if we can move anywhere from 100 to 200 inmates into that type of facility, I mean, you're talking about substantial savings for the state. Again, we're at the infant stages of it, but we are working together with LDH trying to get that going. And we have a facility in Beauregard. We have a company willing to do it that has a experience in that matter. So we're moving forward on it. So
Thank you. And my other question is relative to the work release program. Representative Carrier kind of alluded to some sheriffs having 600 SUVs and things of that nature.
I think he was talking about the feds. Yeah, that was the federal government. That's not us.
And my question is, how much of the money, the salary that the individuals who are in the work release program, how much of that are they keeping?
Yeah.
Or if it's easier, how much of it are the sheriffs keeping?
Yeah, I think if I had to guess on average, and again, this is a sure guess, 65% to 75% probably. I think there's a limit where they can't go over that, but the sheriffs are keeping that much, and the inmates are probably getting around 25%.
So for me, that's a concern. That is a concern when you have individuals in a work release program and that it varies from parish to parish as to what the sheriffs are keeping of those individuals' money in this work release program. And my concern is that I've heard stories of individuals in the work release program and who have spent a significant time in the program. Upon their release, they're lucky if they have $200 or $300, and they've been in the program for a year or so. And if they're in Angola, if they're somewhere in North Louisiana, by the time they are released, it costs at least $60 to get from, let's say, Angola to Baton Rouge. So half of whatever the monies they were able to keep
We
is
provide
gone
bus
just
ticket, but-
on a ride to get here. I'm using that as a
Yeah, right.
hypothetical
I
to
got
take
you.
a Uber. But the point is, why is it that it is varying from parish to parish, and why is it deemed to be fair that an individual can work an 8-hour a day or 40-hour a week in a work release program and 60-something% of that salary is gone, even though according to what we're looking at in this budget, they're getting paid, what, $26 or something?
It's
per diem?
$29.39, but not for the work release. The work release, they're getting less. They're getting $12 to $16 a day, I think, for a work release inmate. And again, it varies because of, again, if you have a guy that's working in a convenience store for a couple of years and he gets out, he's probably spending all that money on commissary. I will tell you, he's not getting out with a lot of money. If you have somebody working offshore, or I've heard stories of the opposite. I've heard inmates walking out with over $100,000 because they worked at a place where they weren't able to spend money, or they were offshore. So it really depends. Some of these sheriffs, they're providing transportation, they're providing meals, they're providing housing. So again, in the real world, if you're able to come home with 25 to 30% of your salary and you get to keep that, I think you're doing pretty good. So again, I can't speak for the sheriffs. I can't speak for the way this was started and when it's even begun like that. But I do know that, I think some of the sheriffs, the work releases are making much more money than some of the other ones. They're probably not. It just depends on what they're doing.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. And I just want to go on the record in saying that is a concern. And I also want to commend the sheriffs that I know who are doing right.
Doing it right.
And I think they deserve some praise and to be brought out so that other sheriffs can see how they're doing it as it relates to the work release program.
Yeah. I think just
You
like
mentioned
anything else,
something about-
competition. When if we get more work releases and there's competition, I think that's going to help. So,
I agree. Last question. Have you been to the Orleans jail?
yes, I have.
Do you have an opinion as it relates to whether or not it is overcrowded? Because there's conflicting information as it relates to true overcrowding by what's on paper and true overcrowding by how many bodies are there.
Yeah. So I will say that, they've been under, which you well know, they've been under a consent decree for a long time. So we, as DOC, have not gone in there and done any type of basic jail guidelines. The DOC inmates get in and out of there pretty quick. So we haven't been a part of that. The only reason I went into there, to be honest with you, is the governor ordered us to go in there with the escape. And I went in there with Jason Williams and Liz Merle, JG. We went in and did a walkthrough, and I will tell you, they knew we were coming. So it was staffed well. It was clean. I don't think it was overcrowded. So it was kind of hard to tell with that snapshot. I've been in meetings with the new sheriff and Sheriff Hudson and in front of Judge Afric, and they've had discussions back and forth about the problems and the issues, and a lot of it was, try to, put a blame on DOC that we're not moving inmates quick enough. But I would tell you, there's 4 parishes that the majority of inmates come from, and Orleans is one of them. Orleans, Jefferson, Caddo, and East Baton Rouge. And when you got 35% of the 30,000 inmates coming from those 4 areas, again, I don't know how you blame DOC for a population and a crime problem in your area, because we're moving them as quick as we can. And that was one of the things that came out that, and to be honest with you, Orleans wasn't on board as far as the clerk's office wasn't putting it into the port, the sentencing information into the portal. The sheriff wasn't putting it into the portal. They were basically mailing stuff and delaying the process. And then they had asked us why it's taking us so long to process them and move them out. But remember, we have 60 other parishes that we answer to too. So we do prioritize those tier 1, those 4 parishes, but there's 60 other sheriffs that rely on us to move inmates too. So
Can you explain what you mean by tier 1? And I'm curious.
Tier 1
as
is
to,
we're the majority. We call it the tier 1 is the majority of the inmates and that are coming from. So you have 10.5% of our population comes from Jefferson, 9 from Orleans, 8 from Caddo, and 7.5 from East Baton Rouge. So if you look at our population of inmates, anybody could go onto our website. We have a dashboard. You look at our 30,500 inmates that are held statewide, half of those in the local facilities. You could click on each parish and it'll tell you how many inmates come from that parish. You could click on the age. It'll tell you how old they are. You could tell if they're black or white. That dashboard has all that information available to the public. And you could see, so everybody could see that the majority of the inmates come from those 4 parishes. So we call them the tier 1. And Ouachita is actually included in that, but I haven't had any issues or concerns or complaints from Ouachita. The sheriff over there does a really good job.
Noted. When you have them categorized in tiers as you described, do you have budgets for those tiers, or is it based on in and out?
I don't think we're budgeted for it. It's just we move those quicker, and we know they're coming from there. We try to get them out because of the overcrowding.
How much are they paid to be in the local jail?
How much are they paid to be when they're
The
pretrial?
DOC.
Oh, DOC, we pay them $29.39 now.
$29.39.
Just went up last year, $3. It was $26.39 for several years.
And it's my understanding and appreciation that the sheriffs, and I'm speaking in general, have wanted an additional increase.
They do want an additional increase.
Are we
and they want it in
having those
statute.
conversations about
Yes, we've had
increasing it?
we've had those conversations with LSA, and I think they've had it with the governor also.
Where are we with that?
I really don't want to speak for LSA. I don't know where they're at. I told them, look, if it's put in my budget, we will definitely pay it. I would tell you, and I said this the other day, you have different sheriffs. Every parish operates different. Mm-hmm. If you got a parish government that provides and operates that jail and maintains it, the sheriff is probably doing much better with $29.39 and making money. If the sheriff is solely responsible for that jail and it's an older jail and he's probably struggling with the $29.39. So I think it depends on the jail and how it's run. I know at Iberia where I was, the parish paid for the jail. And basically, we split everything based on the number of inmates I had. I had 75% pretrial and 25% DOC. So the parish paid for 75% of everything. The sheriff's office paid for 25%. Not all sheriff's offices do that. A lot of them, they put it all on the sheriff or they put it all on the parish. I've had, there's lawsuits going on in St. Landry Parish. So it's different. I'll also add, look, and nobody's asked it yet, but I'm sure you will, but the crime laws, we've looked at the changes in the population based on the last 2 years, and I will tell you, first of all, let me just say it is way too early to say what's going on. But for instance, from 2022 to 2024, there was an increase in 1,700 pretrial inmates in those 2 years. In 24 to 26, there's only 118 increase in pretrials. So what that's telling us is they're pleading earlier, they're becoming DOC quicker, which is what we want, but it does cost for the DOC inmates. So there's an increase of 2,300 DOC inmates since 24 to 26, and in 22 to 24, there was 1,900. So overall, pretrial and DOC in 2022 to 2024, there was an increase of 1,400 more inmates put in jail than 24 to 26. So again, I think the crime laws are doing exactly what we want them to. People are not sitting in local jails, and the sheriffs are getting $3.50 or $4 a day from the parish government to house those guys, and they're not eligible for any programming, any education, any really nothing. They could be a trustee in the kitchen. So those guys aren't getting anything and sitting there, and all of a sudden they plead guilty, and with all the good time they had, they were getting out. They'd go straight to probation and parole with no training, no education, no skills, and they would get revoked. And then they would go back and serve their time, more time. So I think the truth in sentencing, and I'll get blowback from some areas that the judges or the DAs are not on board yet. But if you're actually giving somebody the appropriate sentence on the truth in sentencing and abolishing parole, we're going to have less people. They're going to spend less time in jail, because that same individual that did 3 years pretrial, maybe he had a 10-year sentence to do that 3 years, so he had 7 years on parole. And if his parole got revoked, he went back and did 3.5 years. Today, that same individual should get a 4-year sentence. Do 85%, have the ability to get a year off of good time, so he could get out in 2.5 to 3.5 to 3 years or whatever, and then he's done. So we don't have the revolving door of revocations that we've been having with parole. So I really think, again, it's early, but the crime laws are doing exactly what you guys intended them to do. It's having inmates plead quicker, get into DOC, where now they're eligible for programming, training, work release. And that's what I said earlier. We're in discussions with the sheriffs to get more work releases and more reentry, because we have more DOC inmates. Same number of inmates, but they're DOC, not pretrial. So the sheriff should be happy. They get more money.
Well, thank you. I wasn't going to ask the question.
Somebody would have.
But thank you for that. Chair Villio had already discussed that at great length at another event we were at, so I kind of knew the answer already. But thank you for putting that on the record. I'm sure some of my colleagues appreciate it. Having said that, everything you said, I receive it and appreciate you putting it in the way that you did. My concern, however, into some of the points that you mentioned, one in particular about the rate of pleading. My concern is, are people pleading just to move on when they're really innocent? And I don't know if we did a deep dive or analysis on how many innocent people who have been locked up in local jail for 6 months or 9 months or a year and a half, from what I've heard in my visit to Orleans Parish. They've been sitting there waiting to go to pretrial. They hadn't even gone to trial yet. They're sitting there waiting 6 months, 9 months, and a year and a half. And then when they finally get to the court, they have an opportunity to plead. So by at that point, in my observation, they're so worn out and beat down, they're going to plead to whatever they can just to move the process on so that they can go home. So I appreciate everything that you said, but my concern is, are innocent people, innocent poor people who can't bail out of jail and who've been in jail for 6 or 9 months just pleading to go ahead and get through the process. But I want to conclude my remarks and say that I appreciate you and the conversations that we have had since I've been to Angola twice, and I appreciate your staff, and you have a great team of people around you, and it is my opinion that they seem to be open-minded and compassionate and understanding of what we're dealing with in totality. So I want to go on the record and say that about you, and I think the governor has a decent person in leadership with the assistant secretary and the team that's around him. And I also want to say that I want to get more information when it comes to how individuals are pleading. Because I don't think all of those people who are pleading are necessarily guilty, if that makes sense. Thank you.
No, I appreciate your support too. It means a lot when you come to the prisons.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. And just to the point of the $3, it's in HB1. It was the bump, and there's House Bill 143 by Representative Bacala to make it permanent. And members, again, we're still on our second entity, just on a second entity. Please, let's focus on budget questions that are specific to the budget of the entity as best we can. I'd appreciate that.
I'm sorry, I'm probably elaborating too much.
That's okay, and I fully understand. We appreciate the information, but we do have a lot to cover today. So let's go to next question, Representative DeWitt.
That's you. No, I'm
That's you.
mine off here.
Well, it was still on, so we're going to let your drone take care of that. All right, next, Representative LaFleur.
Thank you. I think I'm just going to have a private conversation on the side before you leave. I want to talk about the second chance programs, the work release programs that are available to female inmates. I am impressed with what you're doing with the male inmates, but I need to make sure that the same amount of availability is there for our female inmates. Thank you.
Yeah, I know a lot of that was delayed because of the opening of LCIW, but now we're ready to roll. So.
Thank you.
Okay, that sounds good.
Thank you, Representative LaFleur. Representative Adams for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. And thank you for being here, Secretary. And thank each and every one of y'all for y'all's response when I do call. Y'all call back. We had a problem in East Feliciana, West Feliciana, the parole. You handled it, and thank you. I just want to thank you for that. If we give the raise, what do you think that'll do to the $10 million in overtime fee? Lower it? I mean, we can't see the future, I know, but
Yeah, I do. I think it will lower it. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. It definitely will lower it based on that the drops being filled. Again, I can't predict the FMLA portion of it, and that's people just could take off whenever they want, and we have to have somebody filled in for that. So I can't replace that. And we are, again, I'm hoping that the efforts we're making with the extra security measures that we're doing and the overtime, that would reduce as we kind of get things in hand. And again, the more staff we have, the better it'll be. So I expect it to be offset, yes.
when an inmate goes to charity in New Orleans, we have to send two guards with them every time they go. Do you think it would pay us to have guards that would be in New Orleans that could come to the hospital, sit with the prisoners, or I know that's a hiring thing. Now you got to hire somebody.
We currently have a bid that's out on the street right now. Actually, it just opened a request for proposal to see about outsourcing that to a company. This will be our third time pushing it out, so hopefully we'll be successful. We had a contract for that in the past.
Yes.
The company just couldn't perform. We had a lot of issues. They were pushed out of the MCLNO, so it doesn't do much good if the company can't be there. So
That's right.
So now we have that bid out. It has opened. We're doing evaluations, and we hope to have some answers so that hopefully we can start it maybe next fiscal year.
Yes. And the dialysis center at DCI, is it still up and going?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank y'all for that. Next thing, the Pro Project. Thank y'all for being part of that. If hadn't anybody been to that meeting, they meet once a year. That's great. Give them a chance. Let's do it.
We work very closely with them.
The work release, East Feliciana, we had a guy that worked offshore there. He was bringing home $100,000, and that's what he left the jail with. And we got some that's there that's working at the local convenience stores making $12 an hour. So it fluctuates. You can't say what that is. Tell me about the FEMA trailers we brought to DCI.
I'm sorry.
The FEMA trailers, they were in Baker. They were used during the flood, the trailers. And now we have about 20 of them at DCI. It's a campground. I don't know who's staying there.
I'd have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
To find out some more information.
I know we might have some deputy wardens that stay in the campers. I mean, we do have that in some facilities. We have some facilities that have houses, and then some that don't have houses associated with. So we do have some campers. And again, those guys are 24/7. They're called on, so no overtime. They come. So we'd like to for them to live a little closer.
I kind of took it as Camp B at Angola. They stay local.
Beeline, they all live.
Beeline. That's it.
Yeah, over 300 houses. Yeah.
Yes. And one more for Prison Enterprise, and then.
Perfect.
Yes, sir.
You wasn't there about a year ago. My son lives right across from DCI. Both my sons live there. About 10 o'clock at night, Prison Enterprise brought in some cows. They turned them out in the field, and a year later, they still had some that they never caught. I mean, how much money are we losing on animals?
I can tell you, what's unique about us is that we are a cattle producer, but what makes us different from what a typical cattleman would do is that we actually track each one of these.
Okay.
It's a part of state property. We get audited on it every year, and we are tasked with keeping track of them. you're going to have some that, I mean, they're animals and that with a mind of their own. But we do a very good job of keeping track of all of our herds across the state.
Oh yeah, well, it was just a few. They came out that night and they had the cowboys, the ropes, the horses,
Yes,
and
sir.
it was going on. But thank y'all for everything you do.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Moving on. Okay. There are no additional questions. Thank you all for being here. And Secretary Westcott, God bless you, sir. I know you have a challenge. We're here to help.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all. Thank
Okay.
y'all.
Thank you.